This is Lyons Den Radio. I'm Jeffrey Lyons. Well, that's what listeners all over the country are hearing several times a day, 7 days a week. I'm Jeffrey Lyons, and that's the lead into my daily movie report, reviews, industry news, and exclusive anecdotes. I'm in my 44th year as a movie critic, and at 15,000 and counting, I'll wager no other critic in any medium has reviewed anything close to that number, and I've seen almost 30,000 films. I don't believe it myself. I'll also wager that no other critic was trained by the great Lee Strasberg, the greatest acting teacher of them all. Paul Newman, Marilyn Monroe, and Ellen Burstyn are among his much more renowned students. And speaking of Marilyn Monroe, I'm sure I'm the only critic who got a happy birthday call from her when I turned 16, but that's another story for another time. In about 60 seconds, my reviews will get your listeners up to date on the new movies opening nationally each week, or in some cases, clue your listeners into smaller but worthwhile films to seek out. Now, I've been a movie critic for Tribune Broadcasting for 21 years, PBS co-hosting sneak previews for 12 seasons, NBC for 13 seasons, creating and co-hosting Real Talk and appearing on all the NBC stations, and co-hosting with my son Ben Lyons, TV's Extras movie guy, MSNBC at the Movies. I've interviewed nearly all the stars of the past 40 years, from Ray Milland and Debbie Reynolds back in the day to Scarlett Johansson and Will Ferrell. Actors know me, but also trust me to be fair, reviewing their movies. I've acted in the classic films The French Connection and Death Trap, and TV's Wise Guy, no known connection, of course, portraying myself, unconvincingly to be frank, but I have an idea of what it's like to be in front of the movie cameras too. The night before I became a critic, I had dinner with Ruth Gordon, an Oscar winner that year for Rosemary's Baby. She said, "Sonny, you're starting your career tomorrow. Think twice before you knock someone else's work." Well, I've lived by that mantra. Your listeners will quickly get to feel like industry insiders, the first to know which actors are making which new movies, and what films to see or skip, or in some cases to avoid on the weekends. It's Lyons Den Radio. I hope a perfect fit via barter for your station. And here's an example of a recent review. This is Lyons Den Radio. I'm Jeffrey Lyons, looking at Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit. It stars Chris Pine of the most recent Star Trek movies, and the movie is based on the characters created by the late Tom Clancy. In the story, he's a student at the London School of Economics on September 11th, so he joins the Marines and then is shot down in a helicopter in Afghanistan a few years later. Then he falls for the doctor supervising his rehab. Now, she's played by British actress Keira Knightley with an effective but nonetheless distracting American accent. Kevin Costner, for reasons we're never told, recruits Ryan for the CIA, where he becomes a mole in a Wall Street firm doing business with a Russian corporation. They're planning to crash the American economy after another terrorist attack. You have all that? Well, director Kenneth Branagh doubles as the Russian mastermind in a role which should have gone to an Eastern European or Russian actor. The obligatory car chase is routine, and the image of Costner in the van warning his mole to get out of the office before being grabbed is a cliche. Expressionless Pine, meanwhile, will never eclipse earlier Ryans, Harrison Ford, Alec Baldwin, or Ben Affleck. This one is the least effective, therefore, in this post-Cold War series of thrillers. That's Lyons Den Radio. I'm Jeffrey Lyons.